Hello and welcome to Cyclocosm.com's How the Race Was Won. Today's episode is on Liege-Bastogne-Liege, otherwise known as LBL, Liège, or La Doyenne. That last appellation has no good English translation, though the connotation is best carried over as the granddaddy of them all. However, that phrase generally refers to the Rose Bowl, which only started in 1902, making it a full decade younger than LBL. Hills are the name of the game at Liège, but they're of a different breed than the sharp bergs of Amstel or the comically steep Mur de Huy. Think body blows instead of headshots. Longer, more gradual climbs mean the selections come less from position and power and more from strategy, tactics, and guile. And at an ass-numbing 261 kilometers, you can bet that having a solid set of wheels blocking the wind for you is critical to success. We take up the action at 90k to go, and already the riders look exhausted. A four-man break slogged along 10 minutes up the road, their cadences already slowed and hips already rocking from the exhaustion of the race. The peloton fared little better, as riders were falling off steadily throughout the TV coverage. Even at the front of the field, absolutely no one looked comfortable, and the domestiques and strongmen moshed tempo with their heads down. Aside from the occasional giant chicken, most of this suffering was parceled out liberally and consistently by the SaxoBank squad. The team halved the breakaway's lead onto the climb of the Stucco and continued their charge to the foot of every climb thereafter. Riders Gustav Erik Larsen and Jakob Fuglsang put on massive tempo pulls, while Danish champion Nicky Sorensen marked anything that moved. And in what has become a Spring Classics tradition, Chris Anker Sorensen kicked off hostilities with a big attack over the Côte de la Vaque at 51k to go. Once Sorensen went, SaxoBank could finally sit up, forcing the rest of the peloton to do the work reining in the attack, offering essentially no rest from the thrashing the team had just doled out. Compounding the problem, Sorensen's two breakaway companions were from teams without major threats in the finale, thus heaping even more work on the already stressed squads of the major contenders. Sorensen stayed clear until La Redoute, the climb that generally selects the finishing group, and within a minute of his recapture, an attack by Alexander Kolobnev put another SaxoBank rider up the road, essentially negating the work of the previous 20k's chasing, and giving SaxoBank another 20 minutes to focus on blocking the wind and keeping its three potential race winners well hydrated. But it was here that SaxoBank almost lost the race. In the handful of riders bridging across to Kolobnev's move was Jurgen Vandenbroek of Silence Lotto, whose presence became critically important minutes later as Philippe Gilbert launched himself from the group, blasted past the break, and within a few scant kilometers had a 30-second gap to play with. Gilbert's continued presence up the road, unlike SaxoBank's long-shot odds on Kolobnev or Chris Sorensen, was a near-guaranteed win. Vandenbroek gave Silence Lotto the ability to drive the second group to keep additional chasers from coming up behind, or pull it back in the event that it became too effective in its pursuit. And Cadel Evans' presence back in the main group made for one heck of an insurance policy if it all came back together. SaxoBank was caught so flat in the move that Karsten Kroon, to that point a protected rider, was placed on the front to try and bring the Belgian back. Unlike their previous failures, though, at Amstel and Roubaix, this time SaxoBank had an answer: Andy Schleck. Over the Côte de la Roche-Faucon, the Luxembourger dropped his own race-smashing attack and caught Gilbert around a kilometer later. Most reports say that Schleck dropped the Belgian, but I'm not so sure. Gilbert had an extensive conversation with the camera moto just before Schleck's arrival, and the numbers weren't especially promising. The duo had 17 seconds on the field, meaning no great extension over the Luxembourger's initial gap, and a definite decrease in Gilbert's. Schleck made no real move to drop Gilbert, and with attacks flying from Rebellin and Ivanov behind, the Silence Lotto rider might have decided that the move was a loser. Certainly his eventual finish, 4th overall, and 2nd in the field sprint, didn't indicate that he'd been broken. Whatever his motivation, Gilbert's return from the break put the race back in SaxoBank's control for good. Despite plenty of squads with powerful sets of riders still in the pack, no one could organize a regular chase. Certainly, the move-snuffing presence of Andy's older brother Frank didn't help bring one together. Occasional solo attacks flew, and Joaquim Rodriguez of Case Taparn even slipped away for second. But on the whole, the group looked simply shattered from the pummeling of SaxoBank earlier in the day. In the end, Andy Schleck cruised in for the win, much to the approval of brother Frank, and Davide Rebellin took a defeat-swollen field sprint for third. But as the pack crossed the line, it was the SaxoBank boys, all 5 of them in the main pack, who were celebrating. A fantastic team effort and a much-deserved win for one of this spring's most active squads. I'm Cosmo Catalano, and that's how the race was won.